Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. We have a great panel now, head by Balancing Growth and Efficiency, a roadmap for dealerships. Kaylee Felio is with us. Congratulations, Kaylee, from PartsEdge, and she's leading the all-star panel. A lot of familiar faces here, Kaylee, and again, a great topic, I think. So,
Thank you. I'm very excited.
all right, I'm going to let you get the show on the road, and I'll step out of the way, and I'll come back towards the end. So, Kaylee, it's all yours.
Awesome. Okay, should we start with quick intros? Go around the room, everyone introduce themselves. We'll start in order. Jim, you go first.
Sure. Hi, Kaylee. Well, Jim Sabino here, All American Ford. We're here in New Jersey, and looking forward to discussing this really important topic that you're hosting today for us.
Thank you.
Holden Scott at Regal Nissan in Roswell, Georgia, and I think this is a very important topic for us all to be discussing. Can't wait to see what everyone brings.
Yeah.
I'm Ed Roberts, COO of Bozard Ford Lincoln down here in sunny St. Augustine, Florida, and also the author of Mal One, An Endless Journey to Effective Leadership. And looking forward to talking about some efficiency here.
Sean Kingery, Vice President of Fixed Operations for the Kaiser Automotive Group in the not quite so sunny and warm Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh no, it's probably getting cold there.
Oh, sure. It's all right.
A little chilly. Okay, so yes, I wanted to bring you guys all together to talk efficiency and really balancing the growth, because I feel like we've gone through such a growth period. We're all just having record months. But how do we maintain that efficiency? How do we, identify areas that need improvements or even some innovation? So with that loaded question, let's start with Jim on how you're feeling about, what I just said.
Well, listen, efficiency built into any department is a smart way to pursue. Parts department is a very methodical, thought out, inventory-based business. Service departments need that to be successful. So the more successful your service department is, the parts department shares in that success because they're filling the need of the service technicians and all the guests that cross into the service drive. And that doesn't happen by mistake. It happens with very, very good and tight inventory controls, tremendous communication within the departments from parts and service back and forth from managers, need and stocking levels and things. So there's so much that go on, but working efficiently is key. PartsEdge and what you bring to the table is a tremendous asset to dealerships throughout the country, and it's just a really good resource to have and to do your job better, smarter equals efficient. So there's so many. The conversation can go on and on and on, but I'm all for it. Working better, working smarter, and having the end result for both departments as a shared success through efficiencies that are put into the parts department.
What you said, Jim, was awesome. So efficiency is exactly, what we want to focus on. And there's so many ways to be more efficient. But I feel like when you look at efficiency, it always translates into more profit. And so, yeah. So with I guess my next question would be, with the tension between growth and operational efficiency, how do we balance the tension that happens, I think, is what my next question would be. And I'm going to go to Ed.
So balancing growth and efficiency are kind of tying together. And let's look at that from a vision standpoint. If we have a vision, then we have a path to get there, or we have what we want to get there. And then we got to remove the friction. As we remove the friction, or the time robbers, or the things that take things away that we're not necessarily getting a whole lot accomplished in, allows us to be more efficient. And we can say more efficient allows us to do more with less, but we're not trying to get rid of people. We're trying to do more with who we have. So it's about doing more without putting as much effort in, or as hard of effort in. And those elements tie together, but they all start with a vision. What do we want to be? How do we want to get there? And work towards removing the friction that prevents us from getting there. And it ties together. And it's one of the big things with parts is you need to communicate with advisors, you need to communicate with technicians, and there's got to be things that ties those things together. If the techs are going back and forth to the parts counter and the advisors are going back and forth to the parts counter, well, advisors can't do a whole lot if they're not at their desks in front of customers. Our techs can't fix cars if they're not in their bay working on vehicles. So we have to remove those elements to make us all more efficient. And so when we make the parts department more efficient from communicating with some type of communication tool, then we make the technicians more efficient and we made the advisors more efficient. And that's where growth really amplifies.
So communication. I'm making notes. And Sean, what about you? How do you guys balance efficiency and growth?
I think one of the biggest things, Ed hit it right on the head there. Whenever you say you have to remove the roadblocks. If there's roadblocks, listen to your people and ask what they are. All the manufacturers now have their own parts ordering systems, which will basically tell you what to stock. And with some of the manufacturers now wanting 95 and 96% fulfill rate to that number in order to get money back, they're telling you what to stock. But if you have technicians that are constantly saying, I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I don't have this, listen to it. And by the way, I'm okay to tell a technician that they're wrong. I'll go back and run, Ed Roberts can walk up, we don't have this widget. Well, okay, well, I'll run the history, guys. We haven't sold that widget in 4 years, so stop complaining. But Ed also may be right. We may have sold 13 of those widgets, and we have a parts manager who's just not paying attention, and that's okay too. Again, whatever the roadblocks are, you have to listen. But it needs to be seamless. It needs to be seamless between just like Ed said, from the service writers to parts, to the tech to parts. Whatever the roadblocks are, you have to listen. You have to remove them.
Absolutely. And what are some strategies to, I guess, streamline this, especially for parts? And what you had mentioned, looking at the roadblocks. Okay, so this technician's complaining we don't have these parts, but you look at the history and it doesn't make sense to stock these parts. So how do you guys streamline those processes to make sure everyone's happy? And we'll go
really
with
circles back.
That
really, I'll take that for a minute. That really circles back to what you guys do for us, Kaylee, where you look at our patterns of what we do and help determine what the stocking levels need to be. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times it's manual decisions done inside that where somebody that doesn't work on vehicles and they kind of say, okay, we, like Sean was saying, maybe we've sold them, maybe we haven't. But in their mind, they're not watching the curve of how that thing is taken off, and we haven't reacted fast enough, and we really hold ourselves back by doing that. And there's so many things that ties to that, with extended loaner days and all the other elements, and that vehicle tying up a bay in the shop, only by not using the tools that we have available to us through you guys to help us stock the right inventory for the times that we do need it.
Yeah, exactly.
And to take that a step further, guys, every DMS, and I don't care, we have 3 DMSs in this group, whatever DMS you're on, you can run fill rate reports, guys. There's reports you can run to answer those questions for you. And I hate the term meetings. I like huddles. And it's okay to have huddles and talk about it. They're not complaint sessions. They're not the B word. That's not what they're there for. They're there to talk about the roadblocks. Have your shop foreman, have your leaders, have your parts guys, have your main parts counter guy, not your parts manager all the time, the main parts counter guy who's the one taking the beating, and have him involved and say, why don't you have, why do you have 7 spark plugs for a V8 F-150? Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's a legitimate complaint. Why do you have 3 rotors? Okay. But then you also, in the same regard, you can say, listen, you told us to stock all these rotors, and by the way, you haven't sold one in 7 months. It's okay to go both directions.
Yeah. Holden, are you back?
I think so.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to what they're talking about or what we're talking about?
I just think the whole conversation is something that needs to be discussed, because I know sometimes we're so busy chasing these metrics, and I've done it myself. And I think that's one thing I was going to say is I just closed a pretty large wholesale account that we had here, just because the amount of work and effort and delivery and all the things we were doing and chasing the money, it looked good for, on a resume maybe for total sales, but then at the end of the day, it just didn't pencil. It doesn't make sense. So sometimes I think everyone can do a little too big with empire building. They get so caught up in, hey, look at all this stuff I'm doing, but then how does it actually affect the bottom line? How does it affect your employees' happiness? Like running around like crazy and making your employees unhappy to chase these big accounts or things like that. We always got to think about that. Like, how does that affect employee satisfaction and happiness? It might be big numbers, but sometimes guys just roll their eyes when they see certain accounts calling and stuff like that. So I think that's one thing to look at too.
Yeah, because they may be ordering a bunch, but they're returning and causing headaches for your team. And it's like, is that really even worth it? Because it looks like they're buying a lot, but they're actually not. So, Jim, I think you had something to add.
Yeah, no, I agree with Holden on that at all. You know, I'm a big fan of not chasing bad money, and you know, some of these big, large accounts that purchase, you know, at very, very deep discounts, and then do the return game, and then hold you out for 30, 60, 90 days it's just not worth it. It's blood money at best. And you know, it's just bad. In my opinion, it's just bad business. You know, focus on your retail customers, focus on your wholesale customers that pay in a timely manner, that have minimal returns. There's always going to be returns, but they have to be minimized. And you know, that just respect your business. And, you know, if you can go the extra mile and locate a part that may be on back order, that's great. If you can do that to continue the relationship and provide good service to a customer, whether it's a retail customer at the counter, or a wholesale customer on the phone, or a shop job at a technician at the counter, that's what you need to focus on. And don't race. You know, if another dealer is, you know, willing to go a little deeper discount, don't get in a race to the bottom, because that's the only way you're going, is to the bottom. Let them have it. If they want to go, you know, below 32 or 35%, let them go. It's not worth it. And Holden makes very, very good point. And that's how we operate here on those exact terms. So we kind of hold for it. And when if somebody is a big return, we cut them off, and that's it.
You know, what's funny is that Ed and I don't know about the rest of you. Ed and I were both blessed enough to go to NADA Academy. And when you're in the parts segment, Larry Hochul, for those that don't know, they'll put you through a class on wholesale, and you'll be looking at these huge numbers. To Holden's point, you know, I'm doing $1 million in sales. That's great, because you're losing money every month to do it. And the first time, because I've been doing NADA Academy twice now, but the first time I went through it, sitting next to my parts manager, and Ed's heard this story 100 times. He literally resigned on the way home, because before we left NADA Academy, we were out of wholesale. Because you don't realize, with the cost of the trucks and the people and the returns, the amount of money you're actually bleeding in wholesale. And it was a major account. And to Jim's point, we were chasing a competitor. This was my career when I was in Minneapolis. We're chasing a competitor, and we're just beating each other up until we're bloody. And we literally dropped out of wholesale because of it. Yeah.
Good, smart move. Smart move. Let somebody else take the beating.
Absolutely.
And not to mention that, I mean, he talked about a lot of things with the trucks and the insurance and the people and whatever, but it's the receivables as well. We put the receivables out there, and then a lot of times they're smaller companies and they're having to float money, so they're floating our money, and then we end up spending a lot of time chasing that.
Yeah.
And so, yes, when you calculate all the elements into it, it's a tough business. Okay, I'm not going to tell you it's not. It's a dead end business. It's a tough business, and you got to make sure it fits your market and fits your business. But just to jump in is not necessarily the right thing to do.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's something that you have to look at for your market and see if it makes sense for your dealership, because it doesn't make sense for all dealerships. And some dealerships are really successful with it and, you know, are profitable. It's always one of those things I've heard, you're either really in it or you're not. It's not something you can just like have to.
Yeah, you're not sticking your toe in and being successful. You got to jump in. Yeah. But hopefully you've jumped in with doing the right study and making sure that you have a market that can run with it.
You got to be all in 100%. You got to do it effectively and somewhat profitable. And there is profit to be made. Don't misread me. And there are plenty of wholesale dealers that are very, very successful, but their focus is heavily on wholesale, and their focus may not be into the retail shop. So they may have a small shop, but like you said, $1 million a month, maybe they're doing wholesale. But you know, the inventory levels that you have to keep, the receivables, how many vans, the insurance, the drivers, what goes missing. There's so many variables there that you have to take in consideration. But some dealers, there's a big dealer in our area called Fred Beans, sure everyone's heard of him, who is very, very successful in the wholesale market, incredibly successful. He has so many different car lines. He has, that market on covered throughout probably maybe 10 franchises. And he's a big player. He has wholesale warehouses all over, like different areas just for holding. And that's like his own little distribution centers. So, that's big. He's all in, that's for sure.
That's someone that's in the wholesale business for sure.
Yeah.
Well, to shift it up a little bit, I want to talk about, the team and how to, foster innovation with your team. And, we talk about efficiency and improving, but how do we get the team to be on board with, changes and being proactive, I guess, and showing them there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Does anyone, I'm going to just call on someone because no one's jumping. We'll go with, Holden looks frozen, so I'm going to go with Sean.
No, you know what? You listen, pay plans drive behavior. If you tie parts people's pay plans into efficiency and proficiency in the shop, you'll meet some resistance at first. Ultimately, I've never failed at doing it. They need to have buy-in. They need to understand that if you have a technician sitting at the back parts counter for an hour waiting for a widget, everybody loses. All right. Once they get tied in and they understand that the part's sitting there and they see Ed out there working on the car, like we talked about earlier, I can run that part to Ed. Now Ed's twice as efficient. That changes my pay plans. Listen, the parts guys aren't the highest paid people in the dealership. We all know that. Okay. They're the lost people behind the concrete walls that nobody pays attention to. It's important to have them, and it's important to tie them into the daily efficiency, tie them into the huddles, tie them into the meetings. It's just as important.
It is. And I know from just talking with Holden too, one thing that he also does with his team is, shows them how to treat it like they're part of the business. And that's kind of what you're saying, is showing them the numbers, showing them like that certain things actually cost money. It's not like you just get something new. It's like, it's part of the business. So Ed, did you want to add anything about, the team and how to foster just the changes of problem solving and efficiency?
It's given the why, and it's given the vision and why we're doing it. We've done the market study. Here's our opportunities. Here's what we can do. Here's what we'll do for our business. And when they can see it, they can be a part of bringing value to the store. They'll push that much harder. If they're just doing a job, then they're just going through the motions. But when you show them they can bring value, then they buy in and emotionally connect with what they're doing.
Absolutely. Jim, I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah, no, I agree with Sean and Ed. I hope, very much that, pay plan drives behavior, as Sean very, very effectively communicates that. It's very, very true. Including everybody, making them part of it. Typically, when you have huddles, meetings, parts isn't always included. So make them part of the discussion, make them part of the topic, make them understand how important it is for their buy-in for the overall success of fixed ops. If listen to them if they have any ideas or suggestions, take it into consideration. Let their voice be heard, and they will feel more valued. A more valued employee is typically a more productive employee. If their pay plan reflects that it's even better. You really have to treat them as if you would treat an advisor or a technician, or you want them to be a part of the process. Being more efficient and having a more organized parts department to serve the customer, whether it be the technician at the counter, the advisor getting a price quote for they got on the phone, a retail counter guest that bought a car last week and they want to buy some accessories, so they're at the parts counter window trying to get some ski racks or a bike rack they want for their new car. Or a wholesale customer that may call on the phone and inquire about a big body order. So having the right inventory, parts management is incredibly methodical. It is really, I give a lot of credit to really good parts managers that get it, that work their inventories, that have the aging down pat, have their obsolescence very minimal, have the turn rates where they're supposed to be, and then some. So, when the technician comes up to the counter and asks for a part, that we most likely are going to have it. Now, again, back to Sean saying, some technicians go up there and, we haven't sold a part in 4 years and they're, this place stinks. And they walk away with an attitude, and then you lose them for a day because their head's in a mess. And then you go out there and you try and say, I haven't sold this part in 3 years. What are you talking about? It's, we'll get it tomorrow. It's in stock, local depot. It'll be here in the morning. So let's get something else and keep going. Sometimes you have to, shake the tree a little bit and let them know that, not every single part is on the shelf. We're going to do our best to have the best fill rate we can, and through efficiencies and technology and stocking levels. If you have a manager that's really, really good with that, we're going to do the best we can to provide a high level of service to be as efficient in that bay and keep the fill rate as high as possible. And that's really that's what we do. That's how it should be done.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned something, that the parts manager working the inventory,
Yes.
and like what that actually looks like, because yes, there are manufacturer programs that help you suggest what to stock, but if parts manager is not working the inventory and you're just kind of letting things do, I don't know, autopilot, I guess, and not really being proactive, then that's how you lose that pulse on what you should be stocking.
Correct. You can get yourself into trouble. That's for sure. And there are suggested stocking levels, and it's all the data that you program, right? You set the parameters on stocking levels and the breadth and the depth, and you introduce new parts, or you take a new part and you introduce it. You have to set the levels that the computer restocks at. So there is a lot. It's very, very, very methodical. So parts managers are incredibly crucial to the success of the entire department. It really is. And then he has to support, him or herself with a good team, at the counter that's knowledgeable. So when the tech comes up, and a lot of things is, with Ford anyway, it's all VIN coded. I'm sure that all the other manufacturers are VIN coded. You put the VIN in, and it kind of will populate the exact part that you're looking for based on the search. But again, you still have to have an organized inventory to start. Special order parts, that's a whole nother conversation, on how to get those off the shelf and into the cars installed, and the whole appointment process. And the initial parts purchase from the technician or retail counter will only happen with a successful inventory that's really managed well. And the aging of it.
Yeah, man, we could go down so many different ways.
Yes, we can.
I want to. I'm trying to think which one is best to go down. I think with the parts managers, how do we identify that they need more support? Because there could be some really good parts managers that have a really good pulse on their inventory. How do you guys identify that they need something to be more efficient or to help them, or do we just let them continue what they're doing because they're already successful?
Yeah, I'll chime in on that a bit. We don't know what we don't know, and neither do they. And there's tools out there, and not to keep giving you plugs here, but it's reality. There's tools out there that helps these guys understand how to work phase ins and phase outs that Jim was just talking about. And if we don't go out and research those tools and find those things that can make us more efficient, then we're just going to do things the way we've always done things. And if we've done things the way we've always done things, then are we really becoming more efficient, or we're just doing more of what we always done? And so we have to go out and chase those tools that can make us efficient. And that is why there's this panel talking about this today, is to let you know that there is things out there that can help you with these things. Because when you're working with your DMS at your store, it's basing things solely off of what happens at your store. And when you use the data or the tools that's available out there, now we're looking at it from a region or a national standpoint across all DMSs, and we have more information to make a better decision with on phase in and phase out. So it's about using the tools that's available to us.
Absolutely.
And Ed, I think more than ever, and you give Kaylee and PartsEdge, give them another plug. Even though at the time I lived in Florida with Ed, and we didn't have COVID down there, okay, but you had COVID, and now you had this strike that's been going on now for however long, and we're all fighting this strike. 4 or 5 months ago, the OEM, and listen, you need OEMs as partners. We all know that. But in the same token, they came in right before the strike started and said, you need to order 6 months worth of parts because we're not going to have ARO. We're not going to have replenishment orders. We're only going to have special order parts. Well, guys, that screws your inventory up. Kaylee, your business is going to change. Your business model is going to change because when and however the strike ends or when they end and how they play out, you have inventories now that you shouldn't have. And we all know it. You couldn't stock every widget for every car, but they came in and said, you need to order 6 months because we're not going to stock you. And there's things that we ordered in our 8 stores, I promise you, that we didn't need. We didn't order everything, but boy, we ordered a lot and we prepared for it. And then now you're hoping that, there's an end in sight and all this ends. But again, we all relied on the OEMs and then the OEMs took it away. And you got parts managers, to Ed's point, we don't know what we don't know. Some of these guys only know the manufacturer's sites. And if it doesn't tell them to stock it, they don't know what to stock. It's not their fault. We just don't give them the tools to do it.
Yeah, and to mention on the what we're experiencing with the strike is we're actually noticing that dealerships forced and obsolete inventory is actually going down because they're allowing dealerships to buy from each other. So you're not having that purchase loyalty penalization. So that's kind of the silver lining, I guess, of what we're seeing right now, or I guess right now, of what's going on with that. And yes, you're right. I think because people are stocking up a little bit more than they normally would be, we're going to experience kind of, again, that COVID obsolescence that happened.
Again, I agree with you, Kaylee. Yes, I'll sell Ed a part and I'll sell Jim a part, but that's all fine and dandy until you have a dealer principal or GM come back and say, why is your $400,000 inventory $220,000 now? Because you can't get parts. Right. And again, it's a double-edged sword. It's a real fine line to walk.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is.
Well, fascinating discussion, everybody, and very timely. So, and Kaylee, I'm so glad you got the group here because they're very, very knowledgeable on all things parts, and we're going to have to come back and do it again.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great. I love these types of conversations. So thank you guys.
And I like the direction it went. I want to thank Sean Kingery from Kaiser Automotive Group, Ed Roberts from Bozard Ford, Lincoln, newly minted author, as well as Jim Sabino from the All-American Ford Auto Group in New Jersey, and of course Kaylee Felio at PartsEdge. Kaylee, to Ed's point, to the group's point, a lot of folks need to reach out, outside of the OEM for help, and I know that's right in your wheelhouse at PartsEdge. What's the best way for people to reach out to you and the team there working at PartsEdge?
Visit our website, partsedge.com. You can reach out to me directly. My email's down there. Or, if you're active on LinkedIn, you can find me there. But yeah, you can reach me and find me pretty much very easily. So.
All right. I want to thank Kaylee Felio and PartsEdge for hosting this panel, everybody. Balancing growth and efficiency, a roadmap for dealerships, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.